Last night, the Detroit Lions faced off against the New York Giants in their very first preseason game of 2024. And while there were a lot of performances to pay attention to, the one that got the most was the quarterbacks. And we're going to talk about why a lot of people are not exactly thrilled this morning for it. Stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. Welcome back, my friends. I'm just going to say this right now. It was so great, it was so awesome last night to be able to watch Detroit Lions football once again. It's been far too long. I was so absolutely excited. I was ecstatic as hell to actually be able to say, football is back. I didn't care about the outcome, at least in the furthest sense of the word. I was just glad to be able to watch football last night. Now, having said that, I'm going to start off this episode by saying this. This is a disclaimer. I'm going to tell you this right now. The first thing that we absolutely have to do when we're talking about these subjects, we have to keep everything in the proper perspective. And what are the proper perspectives? The first proper perspective is this. It was a preseason game last night, folks. It does not really matter in the grand scheme of things as far as record, win-loss, anything else. These games are nothing more than being able to evaluate talent, to see how players are doing in their development, and who is more likely than not, after a certain period of time, going to make the roster. That is what these preseason games are for. It's not about competition. It's not about win-loss. It's about evaluation. Pure, plain, and simple. That's point number one. Point number two, let's also keep this in perspective. What we have to know about these preseason games is this. You're talking about backups, and some of these guys have not yet played professional football, as was the case with some players last night. It was their first time ever playing, and for other guys, it's like, listen, they're not going to necessarily be in the best of conditions to give great performances. You would like to see potential diamonds in the roughs, kind of show out, but typically you're seeing guys that normally are just filler people for camp, and you're trying to find who can make the best out of what is around them. So again, performances are going to have to be given a little bit of a grading curve when you're talking about this. So there's that as well. Then, on top of that, we also have to keep in consideration, there was the weather, there was also the fact that, it was the first game, there might have been some nerves. I'm just trying to keep things in proper perspective here, because it's like, listen, there's a number of ways that we could go with this, and I'm trying my absolute best to not either oversell a situation or to undersell a situation. I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can when we're having this subject. And the subject, obviously, that we're going to talk about is the quarterback play, because I could talk about any other of the positions that were important to watch last night, whether it was the lines, I'm talking about the offensive line, the defensive line, the defensive secondary, the wide receivers, whatever have you. But the position that everybody wanted to watch last night, that everybody was paying attention to, was the quarterback position between Nate Sudfeld and Hendon Hooker. And the reason why is because primarily of Hendon Hooker. Everybody last night wanted to see Hendon Hooker play because it was his debut. Even though it was a preseason game, it was his debut. Everybody wanted to see how he was going to play last night. And sad to say, for most Lions fans, they were not too thrilled that they had to wait a whole half of a game, a very boring half of a game, before he actually got a chance to play. But that was how it played out. However, though, I'm going to say this right now, just to kind of put it out there. What I saw last night as far as actual quarterback play, I'm not talking about an ability to run. I'm not talking about ability to scramble. I'm talking about an ability to stay in a pocket, to be able to throw accurate passes, to be able to go through reads. I did not see a very good showing from either quarterback. Neither Nate Sudfeld nor Hendon Hooker, in my opinion, did very good jobs actually being able to stay in the pocket and show good quality quarterback play. And there's a good reason why I'm specifically stating it that way. But let me explain specifically when it comes to each quarterback here. When we take a look at the two quarterbacks, this morning there's a lot of people, and last night there were a lot of people that were very, very concerned about how the quarterbacks played last night, about how they performed. And there's a lot of concern now that, hey, we need to find somebody else. That's why I have my title for this thumbnail to be Plan B. The Lions, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, we need to find a Plan B, and we need to find it in a damn hurry. And a big reason for that is how particularly Nate Sudfeld played last night. I'm going to call it for what it is. Most Lions fans do not like Nate Sudfeld. They think that he's absolutely trash. And again, the colorful nicknames that they have used for him is quite an emblematic, sort of representation of that. But I also know this. Lions fans have come to trust Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes immensely. And it's like, listen, when they brought him back, a lot of people didn't like the decision, but they were willing to give him another shot because it's like, listen, obviously Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell haven't steered us wrong so far. Let's give it another shot. Let's see what we get here. And what we had heard out of training camp is that Sudfeld was doing okay. He wasn't necessarily wowing anybody, but he was pretty damn solid. So I was like, okay, let's see what happens when we get to the actual preseason game. And I'm going to say this right now. When I watched Nate Sudfeld, and as almost everybody else is going to say, Nate Sudfeld did not look like backup quality material. He looked like trash. Again, you go back to the very first half of that game, Nate Sudfeld could barely do anything. He absolutely looked timid in the pocket. He did not look comfortable in his surroundings. He was not willing to throw the ball down the field. He just did not look the part of a backup quarterback. He looked like he was not able to actually play at the level that he was at. And the reason why I can say this is because in the first half of the game, he looked like trash. But in the second half of the game, when he was up against the Giants' third strings and he was actually out there with everybody else, he actually started to perform a lot better. So it's like, okay, you can't perform well against the second stringers, but against the third stringers, you're looking pretty fine and dandy. That right there is why I'm saying he does not look like he's able to play at the second string level. And the reason why I can say this, other than just the difference of performance between the first half and the second half, is one of the biggest things that I saw last night about Nate Sudfeld that was a huge red flag for me, other than the ones I've already stated, was that Nate Sudfeld was missing some really key reads. Again, take a look at this play. This play was about halfway through the second quarter, and the Lions are trying to convert a very short third down. It's like maybe 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, something like that. What happens? Nate Sudfeld snaps the ball. He throws the ball out on a quick out route to Tom Kennedy. Kennedy catches the ball, but he's about a half a yard short. Okay, that doesn't sound that bad, but here's why it's bad. Take a look at the replay. If you look in the very back of the freaking replay, notice how Darius Fountain literally breaks from coverage and there is nobody on him. He is wide ass open. Why? Because both cornerbacks bit down on Tom Kennedy going to the out route, so there was a blown coverage on the backside. All freaking Sudfeld had to do was just take a half a damn second longer to look up and say, oh, there's a guy and there is a blown coverage. This can go for a big ass play. And he did not do that. That right there is a huge problem because let's understand this. Nate Sudfeld has been in the league now for quite a couple of years. He's got more experience than freaking Hendon Hooker. He's also got more experience in this offense than Hendon Hooker. So Sudfeld should have known that, hey, if there are two guys on one dude, there is going to be a blown coverage most likely. Let's throw the ball there rather than trying to force a situation even though it's the hot read. And let's call it for what it is. If you go back to that play, Nate Sudfeld wasn't under any pressure. He just got the ball out as quickly as he possibly could. Now, I will say this. We all know that the Lions and the Giants were running vanilla concepts last night. Is it possible that the Lions told him that's where they wanted him to throw the ball? It's possible because it is a vanilla play. But it's like, dude, for as wide open as freaking Fountain was, it's like, dude, you can't miss that. That is something that you absolutely have to take advantage of 100 times out of 100 without failure. And that right there was one of the major problems that I saw out of Sudfeld last night, along with all the other problems I said. Timid, poor pocket awareness, poor pocket navigation, was not able to make proper reads, and again, it didn't look like he was able to get going until later in the game when he started going up against the third stringers. All of those are massive problems for a guy that's trying to be the second string quarterback for the Lions right now. Now let's talk about Hendon Hooker here. I'm going to say this right now. Hendon Hooker was exciting to watch last night. He truly was. He was able to make plays with his legs. He was able to extend time in the pocket. He was able to do everything that he was advertised being able to do at Tennessee, which was extend plays, give second chances to plays, absolutely be able to pick up yards on the ground with his legs if there's a problem, which is exactly what he did. However, though, the problem is that I don't care necessarily about how well he can run. That is not something that is in question here. What is in question is his ability to play quarterback. And quarterbacking has less to do with running than it is to do with, hey, can you navigate a pocket? Can you go through your read progressions? Can you throw an accurate pass? Can you read what the defense is doing? That is what is truly much more of an important and valuable commodity with a quarterback than, well, can you run like a gazelle and can you extend plays if necessary? That's all fine and dandy, but that's just kind of like the cherry on top. We need to get all this other stuff, which is kind of like the meat and potatoes that you absolutely need to have if you're going to be a successful quarterback. That's why I'm saying, when I took a look at what Hendon Hooker did last night, I did not see that. And here's how I know this. Again, I've been talking about this ever since the reports have been coming out about Hendon Hooker in practice. And the thing I kept hearing about Hendon Hooker in practice was inconsistency. And it was primarily related to his accuracy component. Take a look at these plays. There were two specific plays that I'm referring to. There were a couple of throws that Hendon Hooker put the ball right on the money. They were short, very easy throws. Any quarterback should be able to make them, especially at the NFL level. But once the ball started traveling further down the field, that was when things got more problematic. On these two specific plays that I'm talking about, look what happens. Hendon Hooker's not necessarily getting pressured. He might be able to feel it a little bit, but he's got a clean pocket. He has the ability to move. He has the ability to navigate, and he has the ability to get the throw off cleanly. But yet every single time, well, not every single time, in the two plays that I'm showing here, let's be fair, in the two plays I'm showing here, the ball completely airmails on the wide receiver, who is Maurice Alexander, in both of them. And it's like, listen, you can't do that. Because on the second play in particular, freaking Maurice Alexander, if freaking that ball is put exactly where it needs to be, Alexander has enough speed, he could have turned the corner and had a big gain. But instead, he overthrew him. He led him way too far, and it was way too high. Alexander had no shot at it. And Alexander had a step on his guy. That is one of those throws that, as a quarterback, you absolutely have got to make, because that is considered a standard throw. If you can't make that kind of a throw, an intermediate level throw, there is a problem. Now again, keeping everything in the proper context here, pardon me. This is Hendon Hooker's first actual game. It is still technically what most people would call his rookie year, because he really didn't get any action last year. So I understand, before anybody starts blowing me up here, he is still learning, and it is his first game action. So again, giving a little bit of grace here, giving a little bit of leniency. But the bigger problem that I had with Hendon Hooker was, again, understanding the pocket, understanding how to stay in the pocket. Because what happened to Hendon Hooker last night? He left the game with a concussion. Why? Because Hendon Hooker thought he could go out there and he could play with the big boys in quite a literal fashion and try and bulldoze over them. And it's like, great, you showed your bravado, you showed your strength. That is an absolutely great thing if you're in a contest for strength. But that's not your job as a quarterback. Your job as a quarterback is not to bulldoze over people. Your job as a quarterback is to lead the offense and to do so intelligently. And what I saw when Hendon Hooker scrambled, he was not being smart with how he scrambled. Everybody wants to talk about how he bulldozed over that linebacker and safety, but that's not smart. That's going to get you injured. That's going to result you getting into a career like RG3, like Cam Newton at the end of his career, where he could barely play anymore because of his shoulder injuries. That's what happens to quarterbacks that rely too much on their legs. And what I saw out of Hendon Hooker was this. When the play started breaking down, rather than going through his reads, he relied on his legs to get out of trouble. And then that was when he started having those moments where he was being very dangerous, very reckless with his scrambling style. Because again, there was another scramble where his freaking knees almost got taken out. And it was the same knee, if I recall correctly, that he had surgery just on for his ACL. So it's like, listen, if you're gonna scramble, please, for the love of God, slide. Do not try and pick up an extra yard just for the hell of it. You will still have to most likely pick up the extra yard later. Just take what you can get. Don't try to be a hero, especially for a preseason game. Come on now. Which then leads us to this whole situation that a lot of Lions fans hate. They look at what we have with quarterbacks right now. Obviously, nobody likes Nate Sudfeld. Obviously, everybody wants to get rid of him. With Hendon Hooker, they're like, okay, Hendon Hooker's clearly got talent. Hendon Hooker's clearly got promise. But is he ready to be a backup quarterback? No, he is not. He still has a lot of development to go. He still has a lot of, progression to catch up on. So obviously, he's not ready. But that doesn't mean we give up on him. Okay, what does that mean? It means we need to have a plan B. It means we need to bring somebody else in. But who? And I'm going to say this right now. Before anybody even dares suggest Ryan Tannehill, I am going to cut that off at the pass. I am going to cut it off at the knees. Ryan Tannehill is not interested in becoming a backup quarterback. I said this multiple times on my live stream last night. Ryan Tannehill wants to be a starter somewhere. There's a reason why he has held out as long as he's had into the training camp period, not even showing he's interested in signing a contract, because he is waiting for when a team has an injury to their starter or when there's a quarterback controversy or something that's going on and it looks like the team needs to make a change. That's when he's going to pounce, and then he's going to sign a contract, a one-year deal for like $20 million, and he's going to go out and play starting quarterback level football. That's what Ryan Tannehill had. That's what Ryan Tannehill wants. And that's not going to happen here in Detroit unless something happens to Goff. And heaven forbid that does happen. So let's forget about Ryan Tannehill. In fact, I want to propose what one of my viewers did last night, and that was Braylon Dennis. And I, again, give him credit for this. A.J. McCarron. A.J. McCarron has plenty of experience playing in the NFL. He was a backup for Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals. Did a pretty decent job there. And in the UFL, he was tearing it up with the Battlehawks. So it's like, okay, the guy clearly has the experience to lead a club to be successful. Whether it's a short-term status in the NFL or if it's a long-term status in the UFL. The point of the matter is that if you take a look at what we currently have in Sudfeld and also in Hooker, McCarron is a vast upgrade for this season. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about getting an upgrade for this season right now, a stopgap, a filler option, because it's like, listen, if, again, heaven forbid, something happens to Goff, we need somebody to step in and be able to hold down the fort for a couple of weeks. I believe that McCarron can do that. Do I believe Sudfeld can do it? Hell no. Do I believe Hooker could do it? Not right now. That's why McCarron, to me, seems like a very reasonable option. He has plenty of a veteran experience. He has the ability to play at an NFL level and play solid, which is exactly what you need out of a backup quarterback for a period of a couple of weeks, if need be. So that's why I'm saying, if the Lions are going to enact an emergency plan B, please, for the love of God, let it be A.J. McCarron. Do not try and court Ryan Tannehill. That's going to cost way too much money, and he ain't even going to be interested in the first place. But anyway, having said that, I think I'm going to end this episode because I know that when it comes to quarterbacks, I am very, very vocal about them. I am very heated about them, and that's because I myself was a quarterback. I have a very strong interest in quarterback play. And what I saw last night was not good quarterback play. So that's why I pointed out, not only in terms of film, but in terms of logic, in terms of reason, and also just be like, hey, you know what? Keeping everything in proper perspective, it still was not good. And that's what I try to do. I try to present a reasonable, objective, fair, honest opinion. Some people may not agree with me. That's fine. I'm just giving you my opinion based upon where I'm sitting. You don't necessarily have to agree with me, but please at least give me the respect to at least hear me out before you just start blasting me on freaking social media or in the comments section. That's all I ask. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, I highly encourage y'all to subscribe. But I also want to encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. I also want to encourage y'all, please, share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel grows, the greater the channel spreads. And with that being said to everybody, I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all got something in your life makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.